People from the UK often arrive in Canada expecting comfort and familiarity. Same language, similar systems. Then something feels different. Not loudly, not suddenly. The difference shows up in how days move, how people interact, and how space feels around you. At first, nothing seems obviously wrong or even particularly notable. The airports function efficiently, the cities look modern and organized, and people speak English with accents that feel easy enough to understand. Everything suggests a smooth transition, and most people from the UK assume they'll adapt within weeks because the surface similarities are so reassuring and obvious. But beneath that familiar surface, something operates differently. The rhythms don't quite match what they're used to. The social cues carry different meanings. The expectations around time, space, and interaction follow patterns that look similar but function distinctly. This gap between appearance and reality creates a peculiar kind of adjustment, one that sneaks up slowly because you keep thinking you've already figured everything out, only to discover another layer of difference you hadn't noticed before. The challenge isn't dramatic culture shock. It's the persistent low-level confusion of a place that feels like it should make complete sense but somehow doesn't. Not right away. And understanding why takes longer than most people from the UK initially expect when they first arrive. Daily routines feel wider. Streets feel more open. Homes feel spaced out. Errands take longer, yet feel calmer. Life moves with fewer tight edges. For many from the UK, this shift feels subtle but constant. Everything requires more distance, physically, temporally, mentally. The grocery store isn't around the corner, it's a 10-minute drive. Meeting a friend doesn't mean popping over, it means planning transportation and timing. Running multiple errands in one afternoon doesn't happen through quick walks between shops. It requires organizing your route and accepting that each stop takes longer than it would back home. This spatial reality reshapes daily life in ways that aren't immediately obvious but accumulate over time. People from the UK often describe feeling like they're living in wider margins, with more space between moments and activities. At first, this can feel inefficient or even isolating, especially for those accustomed to dense urban environments where everything exists within walking distance. But over time, many notice that the extra space creates different possibilities. There's less rushing between obligations, less feeling packed in or crowded, more mental room to transition between activities. The inefficiency stops feeling like a problem and starts feeling like a different approach to organizing daily life. One that prioritizes calm over convenience and spaciousness over density in ways that fundamentally alter the texture of ordinary days. Social interaction changes shape. Conversations feel polite yet reserved. Friendships build slowly and steadily. Small talk carries warmth without pressure. This rhythm surprises many people from the UK over time. The directness they're accustomed to doesn't translate the same way here. Sarcasm lands differently, often misunderstood or taken literally. Banter that feels normal in the UK can seem harsh or unnecessarily sharp in Canadian contexts. Meanwhile, Canadian politeness can feel opaque to people from the UK. Friendly without being particularly open, warm without offering immediate closeness. It's not coldness exactly, but it's not the kind of quick familiarity many people from the UK expect either. Friendships develop through repeated low-pressure interactions rather than intense bonding moments. Someone becomes a friend gradually, through months of casual encounters and small gestures, rather than through one great conversation or shared experience. This pattern requires patience that people from the UK don't always know they need to cultivate. They expect relationships to form more quickly, with clearer signals about where they stand. The Canadian approach feels ambiguous by comparison, pleasant but hard to read, inclusive but not necessarily intimate. Over time, many people from the UK learn to appreciate the steadiness of friendships that form this way, but the adjustment period can feel lonely and confusing, especially when everyone seems nice but nobody seems to be becoming an actual close friend despite months of interaction. Work life feels structured around balance. End of day means end of work. Evenings belong to personal time. Weekends feel protected. This difference reshapes how people from the UK view time and energy. The intensity they're accustomed to in work environments often doesn't match what they find in Canada. People leave the office at reasonable hours without apologizing or explaining. Taking vacation time is normal and expected, not something requiring justification or guilt. Emails sent after hours don't necessarily expect immediate responses. The boundary between work and personal life exists more clearly and gets respected more consistently than many people from the UK are used to experiencing. At first, this can feel disorienting. like everyone is less committed or ambitious than they should be. People from the UK sometimes worry they're not working hard enough or that their Canadian colleagues aren't taking things seriously enough. But over time, many realize the difference isn't about commitment level. It's about sustainability and different beliefs about what productivity actually requires. Work still gets done, projects still move forward, and careers still develop. But the process doesn't demand constant sacrifice of everything outside work. This realization often shifts how people from the UK think about their own relationship with work, helping them question assumptions they didn't know they were carrying about what dedication looks like and what balance actually means in practice, rather than just in theory or corporate messaging. If this perspective feels familiar, support the channel by subscribing to Global Encounters. These stories come from real patterns people notice across countries. More calm and honest comparisons arrive every week. We focus on the adjustments that actually matter in daily life. Not the dramatic differences that make headlines, but the subtle shifts that reshape how ordinary days feel and function. These observations come from listening to people who've lived through these transitions, who've spent enough time in multiple places to recognize patterns that aren't obvious from short visits or tourist experiences. We're not interested in ranking countries or declaring one approach better than another. We're interested in helping people understand what they're actually experiencing when familiar things feel slightly off, when they can't quite figure out why adjustment is harder than expected despite surface similarities. Your subscription helps us continue creating this kind of thoughtful content that serves people navigating real cultural transitions. It tells the algorithm that patient, nuanced storytelling deserves space alongside flashier content. And it connects us with others who value understanding over judgment, curiosity over certainty, and honest exploration over simple answers. So, if this approach resonates with you, if you're interested in how daily life varies across cultures in ways both subtle and significant, subscribe and join us for more conversations like this one. Nature blends into daily life. Parks feel close. Silence feels present. Weather shapes routines instead of fighting them. Many people from the UK notice a stronger connection between daily life and environment. The relationship with nature isn't recreational or separate from ordinary life. It's woven through it. People talk about weather as a real force that determines plans, not just as conversational filler. Winter genuinely changes how life functions, requiring different clothing, different transportation considerations, different social patterns. But rather than treating this as an inconvenience to overcome, Canadians adapt their routines around seasonal realities. Similarly, access to nature isn't treated as a special weekend activity requiring planning and travel. Parks, trails, and green spaces exist throughout cities and get used regularly as part of normal life. People from the UK often notice they're spending more time outside without specifically trying to, simply because the infrastructure and culture support it. The silence surprises many people too. Actual quiet exists in ways that feel increasingly rare in dense UK cities. Even in urban Canadian environments, there are pockets of genuine silence, moments without constant background noise from traffic, construction, or crowds. This ambient quiet changes the baseline stress level in ways people from the UK often don't recognize until they return home and notice how much noisier their previous environment actually was. The connection to environment in Canada isn't romantic or idealized. It's practical and constant, shaping daily decisions and weekly routines in ways that feel more integrated than many people from the UK experienced before moving here. Life in Canada feels different for people from the UK because the change happens quietly. No shock, no conflict. Only a slow realization that everyday life follows a new rhythm. If this story connected with you, like the video and share your own experience in the comments. The adjustment doesn't announce itself with dramatic moments or obvious challenges. Instead, it accumulates through hundreds of small differences that individually seem insignificant but collectively reshape how daily life feels and functions. People from the UK often describe looking back after a year or two and being surprised by how much has actually changed in their routines, expectations, and internal experiences, even though they couldn't point to any single moment when the shift occurred. The similarities between UK and Canadian culture make this gradual adjustment particularly interesting because they create an expectation of easy transition that doesn't quite match reality. The adjustment is real, but it's subtle enough that people sometimes doubt whether they're experiencing anything genuine or just imagining differences that don't actually exist. Understanding that others share this experience, that the quiet adjustment is normal and meaningful, even though it's not dramatic, helps validate what can otherwise feel like a confusing and isolating process of slowly becoming different without quite knowing how or why it's happening to you.